Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for a first look at the ADE Competitive Index. For those of you not familiar with ADE, that's an acronym for Autonomous Digital Enterprise, which is BMC's effort to take a look at what IT in 2025 will look like. I'm Herb Van Hook from BMC's CTO office. I'm joined by an old friend of mine, Carl Lehman, from 451 Research, who is part of S&P Global Market Intelligence at this time. Carl is going to be the one sharing with you today our findings from a very extensive global survey around the elements, the components of ADE, and provide some context, impact, and IT organizations' perception of what ADE means to them. Let me share with you our agenda for today. The introductions I've just gone over. We're going to talk about the Autonomous Digital Enterprise, what its components are, the overview of it, what it means. And then Carl's going to share with you a first look at the ADE index as a result of the survey that was recently conducted by 451 and S&P Global. So let's first go to the ADE overview. By the way, Carl and I will not be taking questions during this presentation. However, if you put your question into the chat box part of this broadcast on Zoom, we'll take a look at them at the end of the session and respond at that time. Thank you. So one of the common themes that we've seen with our customers here at BMC is this idea of run and reinvent. The idea that they have to stabilize and optimize their existing IT environment, while all the time master the emerging technology that's coming at them constantly and driving change within their organization. And how do they unify that current stable environment with this ever-changing environment to create this new future environment? And as a result of that, to deliver innovation on a continuous stream to their stakeholders, their enterprises, to their organizations. The outcome of that constant reinvention, the outcome of that constant innovation is really three key components. One is agility, the ability to deliver processes at greater velocity, the ability to respond to change in a better way. And the second is to be able to drive actionable insights out of the massive amount of data that we generate today, out of our business processes, out of our transactions, even out of our IT infrastructure. All those things come together to drive a greater customer centricity, whoever we're serving as a business or an organization or an agency, to be able to get closer to the customer, understand their needs and wants, deliver information to them, deliver services to them. So BMC did a lot of research in this area over the last 9-12 months. And out of that came what we call the Autonomous Digital Enterprise, or a view of what IT would look like in around the 2025 timeframe, 5 years out. We feel that powered by an evolution in business and operating models and transformed by a set of key technology enablers, a key set of technology tenets that organizations are going to optimize their skill sets and their strengths around, we feel that they're going to evolve themselves into this autonomous digital enterprise state. And at the center of this is delivering those three things I mentioned earlier: agility, actionable insights, and customer centricity. Let's take a deeper look at these operating model characteristics and the technology enablers, because those things actually form the core of the ADE index, the survey that was just delivered and that Carl's going to share with you today. So on the operating model characteristics, we believe there's 5 things that are going on right now and will really be definitive in terms of what the IT organization of the future looks like. One is departmental functions, individual business unit functions are becoming more and more technology savvy. There's a lot of factors driving this. It's demographic changes, it's the impact of consumer grade IT that everyone's familiar with, and it's the ability to procure technology solutions in all new ways, you know, the explosion of SaaS offerings, for example. So as a result, the technology knowledge, the expertise is no longer really centered in the CIO organization or the CTO organization, but it's pervasive throughout businesses, throughout organizations, throughout enterprises. The other thing we're seeing is innovation is happening in a much more collaborative manner. It's happening in a sharing economy. Part of this is technology enablement. Part of this is the explosion of things like open source options, the explosion of APIs, cloud services. All of these things are helping drive a wide buffet of solutions for people to innovate over, but also they're innovating between government and private sector, between competitors even. And you're seeing some unique actually partnerships occur and unique collaboration occur to drive new levels of innovation powered by technology. The other thing you see happening are the expansion of digital business domains, the idea that a particular set of problems are being solved in a very vertical fashion from the low end to the high end, from the infrastructure all the way to the business process to the customer interface through a vertical integration model. You're also seeing optimized technology buying. Now more than ever, there's more ways to procure technology solutions, from licensing and paying for on-premise software and infrastructure to consuming cloud services through subscription models to leveraging open source solutions where appropriate. And you're seeing optimized technology buying occur across the board, trying to balance that need for CapEx versus OpEx, balance the need for risk versus quick flexibility in purchasing. All of this is coming together to drive an evolved role of centralized IT organizations. The CIO organization of the future is going to be quite different than we see today, driven by all of these factors and driven by a set of technology enablers that we think are going to be front and center in the future. Let me take you through those 5 things. First one is pervasive automation. Automation everywhere up and down the stack. We've long time had infrastructure level automation, but through the use of very fungible and flexible and elastic infrastructure through cloud services, that's actually moved into a new era, all the way up through the business process. We've seen the growth of things like robotic process automation, where we're seeing business processes automated in all new ways, many times driven by artificial intelligence, deep analytics to trigger the right types of automation at the right time. We're seeing the expansion of the principles and models and technologies around DevOps. This is a pretty big movement the last 10 years. It's expanding out to encompass those types of rapid innovation, iteration throughout all business processes. And we're really seeing a generational shift in technology that enables DevOps occur. We're seeing the data-driven business emerge. We're generating more data than ever before, technology-based data, business-based data, even industrial domain data, manufacturing data, healthcare data, financial data, et cetera. How do we make the best use of that data? How do we deliver new insights? How do we derive new types of analysis out of that data? And so companies more than ever are investing in data operations technologies, data pipeline technologies, data lineage and governance technologies, data quality technologies to try to drive new levels of insights and leverage the data to the best of their ability to serve their stakeholders, to serve their customer base. We're seeing cybersecurity also enter a new era. The bad guys are more sophisticated than ever before. They're leveraging things like deep analytics, machine learning, artificial intelligence. They're delivering new types of attack vectors, new ways of getting into our systems. And so as a result, people are investing in new ways of securing the systems through things like AI, machine learning, as well as extensive levels of automation. That's the only way to stay ahead of the game in cybersecurity. All of these come together to deliver a new level of customer experience, or what we call transcendent customer experience, where organizations, enterprises, agencies, businesses, they understand what customers need and want, and they understand how customers are using their services, their systems, and the types of technology interfaces they offer. So we're seeing these 5 areas being the focal area in terms of amplification and best practices and centers of excellence in IT organizations in the future. From the standpoint of delivering new skill sets in these areas, upping their game there, as well as embracing the new technology options. So with that as background, to sort of do a level set on ADE, on Autonomous Digital Enterprise, let me turn it over now to Carl Lehman to take you through the results of the survey that was recently done by his organization and the ADE Competitive Index that they have created to share with you. Carl?
Great. Thanks, Herb. Nice introduction. To the next slide. BMC invited us to participate in a market research effort to assess the perception and state of BMC's vision of an autonomous digital enterprise that Herb just shared with you. And just to recap, it's a data-driven, analytic, and automated enterprise that minimizes manual effort to capitalize on human creativity. And they broke apart the autonomous digital enterprise into the operating models and the key technology tenets that Herb just shared with you. So our goal was to craft a survey to understand what companies think of a concept like ADE, and perhaps understand, whether or not they're doing it. And if they are doing it, how advanced are they? And so basically what we did was we crafted a survey that explained each model at a high level. And we fielded it to be able to understand really a company's digital competitiveness in the industries that they serve. And so what we're going to do is kind of share with you those findings. But before we do, I'd like to share with you some of the 451 market research that we've been working on several years, actually, to lead up to this trend, this concept of the autonomous digital enterprise. So on the next slide, we're going to talk about our research trends. Now, 451 Research, now part of S&P Global Market Intelligence, is really driven by actual data surveys across the board. We have a group we call the 451 Alliance, which is a global assemblance of business and technology professionals that we query every now and then on a variety of different technology topics and trends. We want to understand their strategy, their direction, how they're investing, how they're reacting to change. And among them is, among the research is, what is their approach to digital transformation? We define digital transformation at a high level as using innovative and disruptive technologies to improve business operations and customer experiences. And this includes things like cloud native architectures, hybrid cloud architecture, next generation application development, including microservices and IoT. It runs the gambit of all of the emerging technologies that can be used to improve business operations and customer relationships. And in one of our survey, in one of the Voice of the Enterprise Digital Pulse surveys, we asked them, what following best describes the status of your organization's digital transformation strategy? And a combined 69% say they're either executing, 44%, or evaluating, 25%. So digital transformation strategy is not new. It's been around for a while. I remember, the term used to confuse people a little bit, but now it's basically a generally accepted strategic initiative in most enterprises, and many are leaders are taking a leadership position in it. Some, however, are still kind of lagging behind. So if we go to the next slide, the next level of detail of digital transformation strategies, where are your priorities? And when you examine the difference between digital leaders and digital laggards, the priorities become evident. So in terms of application priority over the next 2 years, digital leaders are focusing on data analytics and business intelligence, while laggards are still kind of focusing on still specialized business processing functions. It hasn't necessarily been automation everywhere, as the ADE kind of describes. In terms of what's the primary focus for mission critical functions, it's refactor and shift to cloud native off-premises architectures. Cloud native architecture design for application development and infrastructure design is a high priority among digital transformation leaders, whereas some of the laggards are still kind of modernizing on-premise systems. The spending on modernization versus maintenance of legacy is different as well. Digital leaders spend a greater proportion of their budget towards modernization and innovation, as opposed to laggards who maintain their current operations. And the percent of organizations where IT operations, line of business work together, that's a kind of a fundamental operating model of the ADE, 83% for digital leaders versus 55% of laggards. And of course, the location of majority of workloads is cloud oriented, public cloud versus on-premise. So this kind of gives you a feel for kind of where the leaders and laggards of digital transformation are. And this kind of factors into kind of setting up the explanation of some of our findings as we go into the future slides. So on the next slide, we wanted to know, well, what's your top IT spending as part of this digital transformation strategy? And it's clear in many organizations the focus is on automation. IT infrastructure and orchestration, followed by business process automation, increased use of cloud, and better business to IT collaboration alignment. So here again is another question that whose respondents kind of back up the earlier findings of our research and have led to BMC's vision of an autonomous digital enterprise, where we're part of the emerging operating models of autonomous digital enterprises kind of focus on a closer business and IT collaboration and a change and a shift in how they do interoperate with one another. On the next slide, we wanted to know also, well, how is AI affecting your processes? So AI, as we know, artificial intelligence has recently basically become an architectural precept in all aspects of IT. Every IT vendor and every enterprise are experimenting with artificial intelligence in various ways to improve a variety of things. And in this question that we asked as another part of our Voice of the Enterprise AI machine learning report, the priorities today are use AI in security, in sales, IT ops, process automation, customer service, marketing, supply chain, information management. But what we also asked them, how is that going to shift in a couple of years? And what we see there is, sales and marketing are kind of lagging in a couple of years when it comes to AI use. And the reason for that is because many enterprises, many companies will have already figured out how to do that, and they want to shift the priority elsewhere. And here the priority is going to be a continue investment in process automation and in customer services, the after the sale kind of capabilities. So AI is a common investment right now by many enterprises, experimenting with where they can use it across the board. And it's a primary enabler of next generation technology for virtually every type of IT vendor. So this kind of sets up the reason, the need for and BMC's vision of an autonomous digital enterprise. These are market trends, technology trends that we've been tracking for a number of years, and start looking into the future to see if to further either validate or better understand BMC's vision of autonomous digital enterprises, and whether or not companies believe it to be of value, and if they do, to what extent they're pursuing enabling it. So if we go to the next slide, we're going to share with you the preliminary ADE research findings. And we say preliminaries because we have a greater survey fielded. Right now, the data that we've captured is from a series of surveys conducted with 420 professionals. If we can go to the next slide. So we crafted, to make this kind of as simple as possible, we crafted a 10-question survey that's broken into 3 parts, where for each operating model and each technology tenant, we ask them where they are today and in 2 years, and how important this either operating model or technology tenant is. We succinctly described each one to give the respondent an understanding of the value and the purpose of each operating model and each technology tenant, so that they can easily understand how to evaluate themselves and their own digital competitiveness. So this survey is really designed to create what we're calling an ADE index, autonomous digital enterprise index, whereby we can capture a industry benchmark, if you will, and companies can compare themselves to that industry benchmark by answering these questions. Following the 10 three-part questions are 3 qualitative questions. And I'd like to kind of start sharing the findings by going to the end. The 11th question, if you go to the next slide, asks the respondent, how do you feel about the concept of an autonomous digital enterprise? And do you agree with it? Any thoughts? And of the 420 respondents across multiple industries, about 18 different industries and 11 different countries, various managerial, business and IT managerial level professionals that responded to it, 300 of the 420 gave us some really good feedback, actually, qualitative feedback. And we did a sentiment analysis of that, and 73% were very positive and encouraging. They had good things to say about the autonomous digital enterprises because it breaks up an analysis of digital competitive into a very simple model, a simple framework. You've got 5 operating models and 5 technology tenants, and it's easy for respondents to get their head around that. There are other, digital competitive models out there that rank you by your, your digital quotient or your maturity level, but that could be pretty complex. So structuring the analysis in this way, structuring the survey in this way, made it easy for the respondents to understand what ADE really is. And it seems, though, that they are reacting very positively with very few negative or doubtful, less than 10% respondents who are negative about that. So with that positive sentiment moving forward, this kind of demonstrates, by the way, the answers to a lot of the questions. Oh, that's fine. We can go to the next slide. The answers to some of the questions. So the first question, we asked, the first 5 questions were about the operating model. And the first question was innovative ecosystems in a sharing economy. Which of the following best describes your status of your organization's approach? And this is an environment where you kind of look outside your organization into others to get better ideas, to get better talent, to get unique capabilities, et cetera. And then either create partnerships or assimilate those capabilities into your value creating model, so that you can, kind of think outside your domain of expertise or the markets where you typically excel, and move outward into new innovative kind of capabilities through third parties or other partnerships. 70% of the respondents say it's very important or essential, and only 49% are doing it, though. Now, by very important and essential, we described the answers to the importance question. Is essential means it enables competitive advantage. Very important means it enables competitive differentiation. Important means it's needed for your business. And somewhat important, it has a little bit of value, and not important says it's basically no value. So 70% of the respondents say it's either very important, meaning it enables competitive differentiation, or essential, it enables competitive advantage. Competitive advantage is different from differentiation in that you have a unique position over rivals, and as a result, your customers award you their business. But only 49% are doing it. And the reason why we think this is true is because it's not easy reaching outside your enterprise. Finding partners and getting partnerships to work, and getting new talent and acquiring new talent and assimilating it into your operations takes a concerted effort and some managerial discipline to do that consistently. The upside, though, is in the future, more companies expect to do that more frequently. On the next slide, we asked about digital business domains. So digital business domains are kind of internal lines of business that have autonomy to reach into other lines of business internally, to seek out the talent they need, the technology they need, the expertise that they need to create and bring to market new digital products and services. So this allows kind of an entrepreneurship approach to digital business. And when we asked the question, 75% say it's very important or essential, and 6% are already doing it, more in the next 2 years. And this is not a surprise because, as I mentioned earlier, digital transformation strategy has been around for a number of years. We're all kind of used to it. We know that we need new technologies. We know that we need innovation in our business all the time, because if we don't do it, our rivals will, and certainly our customers expect more. So digital business domains are something that are pretty much well established in a lot of different companies and are likely to increase in the coming years. On the next slide, we asked about optimized buying technology. This is where lines of business can kind of reach out and choose the technologies and services that they believe is important to their operations, to their processes, to serving their customers. And the line of businesses have been cooperating in many instances with IT or the IT organization for guidance and counsel on how to do things, but still they have some autonomy in their own procurement strategy, and also autonomy in implementation of that. So 72% say it's very important or essential, and 68 are doing it now. And that's not surprising because in recent years, IT and line of business have been pushing very close together. The advent of agile software development practices and the emergence of DevOps in the IT organization, pushing together application development teams and IT operation teams. That concept, that theory, that behavior has been happening within organizations where the lines of business and the IT organizations are pushing together more frequently. So it's not surprise. But also, the uncertainty associated with our global pandemic certainly is caused some disruption that made people pause for a moment and kind of hold off on buying decisions for a brief period of time. But then once they understood the scope of the challenge that we're dealing with on a global basis, many companies started to invest in to accelerate their IT initiatives in certain areas like automation and like infrastructure management. So the optimized buying technology has kind of been underway for a while because lines of business and IT operations have been working much more frequently together. On the next slide, we asked about the operating model evolved role of centralized IT. And this is a role where IT, kind of plays less of a, hands-on type of approach to implementation, much like the earlier operating model suggested, but they play more a strategic role in doing things like, orchestrating across the enterprise and enabling, security across the enterprise, et cetera. So the evolved role of centralized IT moving, away from kind of the tactical deployment into more strategic and orchestration and center of excellence kinds of IT models is what this operating model represents. 72% say it's very important or essential, and 66% are doing it now. So, earlier on, the need for lines of businesses to get closer to their customers, which gave them autonomy to buy their own technology, to implement their own technology, as we demonstrated and saw in the earlier operating model. Now the lines of business and have their own technology skills and their budgets, and so they have some degree of autonomy. And IT is playing a more orchestration role in those enterprises who kind of position as digital transformation leaders as opposed to laggards. So now we move on to the technology tenets. Oh, one more operating model. So the technology savvy corporate functions. So this is where you have to start rethinking how the human workforce works with the automated or digital workforce. And to a lot of companies, that's a pretty high priority, and because it's kind of uncharted territory. Companies that have implemented in automated infrastructure and automated business processes, and now automated workforce tasks and activities through things like robotic process automation, requires a rethinking of how you acquire talent, how you train people, how they interact with systems, how they interact with one another, and how they interact with digital workers. 72% of respondents say it's very important or essential, and 65% are doing it now. And the reason why that's kind of at a high level, we believe, is because in earlier digital transformation efforts where digital technology and automation has been implemented rather aggressively by digital leaders, it's driven the need for them to rethink the human digital relationship. You don't necessarily need software bots created by RPA technology to change things. Earlier automation efforts also drove this. On the next slide, now we start moving into the technology tenants. And this is the transcendent customer experiences where the enterprise offers kind of a uniform experience across multiple channels and a more human touch as opposed to just, working with digital technologies. 75% of respondents say it's very important. 68% are doing it now. That's not a surprise because, improving customer experiences has been a high priority of digital transformation strategy. On the next technology tenant, automation everywhere. This is where companies are starting to look more broadly at automation. It's not just specialized processes, but it's looking at workforce activities, end-to-end business processes, and applying artificial intelligence to understand, what processes are high priority, which processes aren't performing well, and which processes need to be re-examined for improvement or first-time automation. 69% of respondents say it's very important or essential, and 61 are doing it now. And that, again, is not really a surprise because the automation of business and IT processes, again, are core elements of digital transformation. And they're also, the fundamental capabilities needed for an enterprise to become recognized as a digital business. The next technology tenet, enterprise DevOps. This is where the software DevOps mindset, bringing agile development and IT teams for both development and operations together to rapidly produce code, kind of jumps out of the IT organization into the rest of the enterprise, where companies now have that same agile, rapid mindset, but applied to different processes, different parts of the organization. 71% respondents say it was very important or essential, and 61% are doing it now. And so we believe that the continuous improvement initiatives driven by automation practices has driven this cross-functional DevOps mindset, and we're starting to see it now. The software DevOps model, excuse me, jump outside of the IT organization into the rest of the enterprise. On the next slide, a data-driven business. As Herb mentioned, data is everywhere. There's too much of it. So a lot of companies are trying to use data to make better decisions. And 76% of respondents say it's very important or essential. And 68% are doing it now. And, the big data analysis of a couple of years back and the current AI interests are all fueled by data. So it doesn't surprise me, or that shouldn't surprise anybody, that data-driven business operations and use it for new insights to drive innovation is becoming a priority in enterprises. On the next slide, it's adaptive cybersecurity. And I'm not a security specialist, and so I really can't kind of go deep into this, but fundamentally, as we become digital businesses, we expose ourselves to more risk. As we use innovative technologies to do new things, we expose ourselves to more risks. That requires, a pretty responsive initiative on the part of enterprises to adopt new technologies and techniques to respond better to that. So 76% of the respondents say it's very important, essential. 65% doing it now. Security has always been a top priority, and even more so in digital business. So on the next slide, I wanted to share with you kind of where we came up with. We crafted a digital index, and we based it. We provided some rankings on the next slide, where we assigned values to each of the answers to the operating models and technology entanglements, and weighted the average for how important it was. And we did this for the answer for their current state and their future state. And on the next slide, basically what we've concluded, what we've been able to derive is an industry benchmark. So across, in this case, the 420 respondents that answered the questions, this is the industry index, the industry ADE index. And it's interesting to see the priorities here. So it starts with data-driven, as Herb said earlier. Everything's data-driven right now. Optimizing buying technologies is key in certain world that we live in today. Adaptive cybersecurity, transcendent customer experience, and digital business domains. These are all a result of digital transformation strategy. The question then becomes, well, where do you invest? And these are all kind of high priority, but where do you invest next? On the next slide, we compare the current state to what they said in 2 years, and the industry index moves up in each of these. And so that's encouraging. That means that companies believe in the autonomous digital enterprise and are investing and likely to enhance their position in enabling an autonomous digital enterprise. But what's interesting, though, is when you compare the rate of increase over the next 2 years, that's kind of where things get kind of interesting. On the next slide, we examined how each of these are going to change over time. And when you look at the greatest rate of change, the priorities change. Adaptive cybersecurity moves up to in priority. Automation everywhere. Transcendent customer experience, digital business, and innovative ecosystems become the qualities of digital leaders. And so this gives you a demonstration or gives you an idea of where companies are now, where companies see themselves in 2 years, and how their investment priorities are going to shift in those 2 years. And so this could be used then as a benchmark against which an enterprise can conduct their own survey, asking those same questions, and do the simple math to evaluate their own ADE index and understand where they fit against this industry benchmark. So basically, it's a tool that can be used to examine digital competitiveness and understand where you potentially can invest your next investment dollar. And I think that's it.
Okay.
Oh,
thanks
well,
so much.
one more quotation, one more slide.
Okay.
We asked them for some quotes. And how do you feel about the concept of the autonomous digital enterprise? One said it's a value creating model that can operate with minimal human involvement and interference across every aspect of the organization. We did not pay anybody to say that, but that was very kind of them to say that. That was an IT manager. Another says that's how companies will evolve in the future. And then finally, currently exploring this concept to use in my company. That's a VP of IP in a $1 billion plus manufacturing outfit. So I think that is the last slide.
Okay, Carl, thanks so much. And by the way, there was a huge amount of input in terms of additional notes and things where these quotes came from. I know when we were going over the data. So appreciate the insights. Unfortunately, I think we're out of time. We're actually at the 10:40 mark Central Time. So we're going to end this session. And I'll ask the producer to stop recording. And if you had questions that were in the window, we will attempt to follow up with you on those. Thank you very much.